Well, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time you happen to be watching this. For me, Saturday, August 7th, 2021, noon, here in raining and cool Seattle. Which I think for people who don't live in Seattle would think that that's normal in the summertime. It is not. It rains all the time in Seattle that you hear is two things which you may not hear. One is rain, more like mist. And two is, yeah, that's how it is for 3 months or for 3 seasons. But during summer, it's pretty dry and lately been way too warm. So we're definitely appreciating the slight amount of rain and the break from the heat. So yeah, perfect day to be inside and streaming. So there you go. All right, so what are we up to today? We are going to continue work on the improvements to the data theory API. Just a reminder where we got last time. Last week, we changed the signature for data attribute. So instead of returning enumerables of object arrays out of data attribute, we expect you now to return enumerables of iTheory data row. And iTheory data row allows you to, at the moment, as of this check-in, just get the data. So this was just the replacement. But the thing we added in this second commit allows you to return a skip reason as well. So now you can skip an individual data element. Well, an individual data row, I should say. You could, in theory, skip collections of data. So like inline data, you could put a skip attribute on it and skip that one row of data. But if you're using something like member data, class data, something where the data comes from an external source, the skip attribute on those things would skip the entire stack of the data and didn't allow you to skip individuals. So that was the other thing we did. One of the things that I noticed too was as we were turning on pre-enumeration in the console runner, we discovered at least one test in one test project that was broken as a result of this change. And so that was a commit we sort of did in between while we were sort of looking at the impact of making these changes. And it occurs to me that we're about to add to iTheory data row. The next thing that I want to add is traits. And that was, if we go back to the original issue, the original poster really wanted traits, right? And so this is a kind of a sort of an inflection point here. For performance reasons, we have turned off theory pre-enumeration for the console runners. Previously, theories could really only return data. So pre-enumerating them, but the pre-enumeration process is just, for the 30-second view of this is there's two phases. There's a discovery phase and an execution phase. Those phases can be separated by an arbitrary amount of time. So what do I mean when I say that? If, for example, you're using the Visual Studio Runner and you build and you see tests show up in Test Explorer, that happens in a discovery phase. And those things are just kind of like sitting over there in the Test Explorer window, waiting for you to run them. And not until you run them do you execute them. So there's a distinct separation between what happens during discovery and what happens during execution in some runners, like the Visual Studio Runner, VS Code Runner, right? All these things that give you some UI to say, here's tests and choose what you want to run. The console runners and the EMS Build Runner don't have that separation, right? Because you basically say, go find all the tests and run them. Or go find and filter the tests and run the things that are filtered. And it's really that filtering behavior that makes me question whether or not we should re-enable theory pre-enumeration, because now we're going to put traits in here. And traits are one of the things that people very commonly want to filter by. So really, think that maybe theory pre-enumeration should be turned on by default again. And then we should go ahead and fix all of the tests in XUnit itself that are broken by this change, which we obviously found one last week, but we didn't run all the tests with pre-enumeration turned on. We were just running that one test assembly. So my guess is there's going to be others where turning on theory pre-enumeration is going to cause issues. And the fix, obviously, is what we did last week. For things that can't be pre-enumerated, there is this option here that says disable discovery enumeration. And that will basically turn off pre-enumeration for this one theory. Now, I know that this is hopping onto member data as opposed to onto theory, but the reality is that asking to disable discovery enumeration on any set of data in the theory basically turns it off for all of the data in the theory. So that's fine. This is the only set of data here, so that's sort of the way it works, and it is kind of a, choose it for the theory to be on or off, but we leave it to individual data sources like member data to be able to say this data in particular can't support discovery pre-enumeration. Interestingly, the thing that fails here is also related to some of the stuff I saw issues with when we were trying to do the v3 runner code, like there are Unicode issues, and in particular, invalid strings test data here returns strings that are quote-unquote legal strings in C#, but they include illegal character combinations. And so what that really means is like when we try and send that data across the process boundary, it gets munged. It gets munged even not going across the process boundary, but even coming across the process boundary when we return results, that data gets munged. And so we see some of the v3 runner library Unicode strangeness that we previously had. And I think some of that is probably bugs in the argument formatter. Because what's really sort of getting screwed up there is the display name of the test when we try and display the string with invalid stuff, and then we send that across the process boundary or whatever, and the encoding is lost because, of course, it was an illegal string. So it's not legal for us to do that. So I think there's, a couple of layers of bugs here in terms of this, disable discovery enumeration being required here, and also related to the v3 runner APIs, which actually don't have theory enumeration data problems so much as they have, test result problems, because of course the display names are screwed up as a result. So that's interesting stuff that we sort of have to figure out. But I'm tempted to just turn on theory pre-enumeration. Like the debate that goes on in my head with theory pre-enumeration and whether or not we should turn it on or not is really about correctness versus performance. Yeah, I think that's how I want to describe it. It's a question of correctness versus performance. And in the case where theory data could only be data, there was no correctness argument to be made, right? Because you couldn't do anything with that information. And so there was really no reason to go get it. That's not true anymore. Theory data, we're improving the APIs. We're going to give you traits. Traits are definitely something you can filter by. We might put other things in there as well that would help you filter things. And so turning back on theory pre-enumeration by default feels like the right answer. And I think that we will sort of leave it as an exercise to the reader to say, if you're not going to filter things or if you're not going to do whatever, we can turn off theory pre-enumeration. Or maybe we could come back later and say, we'll turn off theory pre-enumeration by default unless you filter things. Like maybe that's the line that we draw. And then we could prefer performance when we have no reason to pre-enumerate the theory data, or prefer correctness if you are, for some reason, trying to get that theory data and use it for a filter. There are some other operations that I don't know if we've actually done them yet or talked about them. In my head, we did them, but I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. But like in the command line, in the console runner, I believe we have a way of listing things. I feel like we do list. Yeah, so we did add list. So here would be another example of a place where we would force pre-enumeration on. Because if you want to list all the tests, you probably want to know the individual tests and the theory data that is available. So that might be another place where pre-enumeration might toggle on for you by default. It also makes me wonder if we should have an ability to, like, I don't know if this is getting a little bit too complicated, but should we have the ability to turn pre-enumeration off again? So right now, pre-enumeration is off, and we only have a switch to turn it on. But if we're going to turn it on sometimes and off sometimes, don't we need a switch to turn it back off if the default behavior is on? That's another interesting question for me. Anyway, so there we are. That's kind of what I was thinking about today. I don't know that I'm gonna tackle the. I don't think I'm gonna tackle the theory pre-enumeration in console runners today. I don't know. We'll see how far we get. I think I still want to be focused on adding more features to the theory data API. But one thing I am going to do is I'm going to, let's switch to main, and then let's go take a look at the builder code. This project is not inside of the Visual Studio solution because it's used to build the Visual Studio solution, so that would be like a circular reference. So this is an extra project that just kind of sits off to the side, and I usually open it with VS Code because it's not easy to open it with Visual Studio. And apparently we got a new version of OmniSharp in the meantime. Okay, so one of the things I want to do is on the test options, I want to turn theory pre-enumeration back on. And so the test flags that we have for parallel and non-parallel are here in our build context. And so the defaults, apparently we have this commented out. Oh yes, so this is a perfect example. Like pre-enumerate theories used to be here. I would like to turn it back on, right? But I also kind of maybe want pre-enumerate theories on in parallel as well. So let's do this. Let's do just build test. and see how many things we break. We know for sure one thing is going to be broken, right? Because we saw that last week. So this is going to be a little bit of validation to make sure that the thing we saw broken last week is really broken, that we're really actually doing this right. So here you go. Perfect. These are things where we expect this and we get this, and it's because we tried to serialize the data. The serialization of that data no longer works. Right, and I think this is part of where the bug is. If you remember, the difference between V2 and V3 serialization is that in V2 we had our own custom serialization, and for strings we just basically serialized the string out as is. But in V3 we're using the built-in binary serializer in .NET, which probably takes illegal characters inside of strings and does this to them, which is why this fails. So this is actually not the test that failed last time, because we were not running the assert tests. We were running something else. All right, this is the test output helper tests. But I feel like it's the same thing. And by the way, these are some of the things that are flaky when reporting the results back. All right, so this is argument formatter tests. The things that are failing are simple values. So simple values, string value. So that's here. So that's a valid surrogate, but all of these things which are illegal, right? So this D800, DC100, DC100, D800, all three of these are the data that's failing. So this data cannot survive pre-enumeration. Now we start getting some warnings about non-serializable data. So these are some things that, if we want these warnings to go away. So we got through assert, we got through common, now we're on core. So async acceptance tests. Nope, async acceptance tests. And this is async value task tests run correctly. So one of these sets of data, can I do this here? And if I can't do this here, why not? That's kind of an interesting question, right? Can I just turn it on at a theory level, and why not? All right, so system runtime type isn't serializable, which is interesting because we used to be able to serialize runtime types. And so we can't do that anymore, fortunately. So that's going to have to go there. Inline data doesn't support disabled discovery enumeration either, which I guess makes sense, doesn't it? Inline data for type of, inline data for type of, inline data for type of. So this is another question. Should I be able to skip theory enumeration in a theory? I mean, I feel like I should. The reason I feel like I should is because I was surprised that I couldn't. So let's go ahead and stash these changes. And let's go fix that. All right, let's go add the ability to turn off theory pre-enumeration. Let's go look at, it's obviously not in data attribute, which is kind of interesting that we didn't put it here. I guess because we didn't want to add it to inline. So it's probably going to be member data attribute base. So we'll go ahead and put that attribute here as well. Turn true if the data attribute wants to skip enumerating data during discovery. This will cause the theory to yield a single test data. Okay. This is going to be handled by the theory discoverer. So there needs to be a test somewhere in here. All data class, empty theory data, discovery options, pre-enumerate theory set to true. So this is using discovery options to turn theory enumeration on and off. That should say discovery options. Pre-enumerate theory set to true with skip on data yields skipped test per data row. Throwing data. Data discovered returning null yields single theory test case. Non-serializable data yields single theory test case. And I think that's no such data discoverer. Not a data discoverer. Non-discovery enumerated data. That's data where we have disabled it here. Non-discovery, let's see, discovery disabled on member data. And then we basically want this exact test, but also for the theory attribute itself. Mixed discovery enumeration. Yeah, that's okay. On member data yields single theory test case. Skip theory with no data, skip theory with data. Okay. So that's the bottom of it all. So let's take this and duplicate it and just put it right here on theory attribute. So this is going to be non-discovery enumerated data, non-discovery on theory attribute is what we'll call this class. And we will put this up here. Okay. So now I expect that one to fail. This is core tests. Okay, we're already running core tests. Good. And there you go. There's our failure. We expected an execution delay enumerated theory. Instead, we got an execution error test case, which is weird. Sure. I don't know why these don't have name of. It's easy enough to fix. I'm kind of curious here. So let's just run the theory discoverer tests. Okay, so the test case we got back. No data found for non-discovery blah theory method. No data found. Oh yeah, that's okay. I mean, these things are returning empty data, which, so, you know, the error that we get back here is there's no data, but that's just because we haven't implemented this yet. Okay, good. That's kind of what we expected. All right, so theory discoverer. Let's see. We want... All right, so... The discoverer, if the discoverer doesn't support theory enumeration for this data attribute and for this test method. Let's see. Returns true if the data attribute supports enumeration during discovery. False otherwise. Data attributes with expensive computational costs. Okay, so that's fine. What we really want here is we want to know if the theory attribute itself has this stuff turned off. And we can probably skip this giant loop of all the data attributes, right? Here is where we sort of opt into doing the loop in the first place. So here would probably be a good place for us to turn this off. So what we want to do is we want to go to the theory attribute and get a named argument called, what do we call this thing? Disable theory something something dark side. This, I don't know if I can use a name of for that. Let's see if I can use a name of for that. Theory attribute. Yes, in fact, I can use a name of for that. All right, this is going to be bigger than I want to put here. So let's say var skip enumeration. It's going to be this. We need a type here, right? Type. This is a bool. So let's see, perform enumeration. Let's see, pre-enumerate. Pre-enumerate. So we're going to say that needs to be false. And this needs to be true. Right? In terms of performance, this one is likely cheaper. So let's do it like that. All right, let's see if our test passes. It kind of did, but also kind of didn't because I have the wrong name here. We're here, so this is the name of that type. Okay. So that test passes. Let's go ahead and take this away and run them all in here. That looks good. Okay. So that should allow us to pre-enumerate. Turn off pre-enumeration at the theory level. Okay. Actually, I want this to be a getk all. Let's do that. Cute. All right, so this is where we are. So this is our ability to turn off discovery pre-enumeration on the theory attribute itself and its test. And then we've got name, fixes and typos and whatever else. And here's the actual logic. And here's the value. Okay. So the other thing I would really like to do is I would love to find all the cases where we do this and move them up. To here. So there's our argument formatter test. That's for character value. We also know that it's going to fail for string value. That was what we just stashed. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So we'll do that. We'll do that. Here's two places where we really only needed it in one. Which is fine. That's our test. That's our other test. And our other tests. And then that. Interestingly, all of this stuff could have been inline data. Probably could be inline data again. Probably should be inline data again. Let's do that. Let's get rid of this whole thing. All right, so this is all of these, which are type of something, type of something with a comma. Let's do a regex. There we go. You're going to become inline data, that type of. Oh, that was not quite right. Let's try that one more time. Inline data of that type of. Perfect. And then we can just separate these all nice and happy, scrappy hero up. And our disable went up there. Let's go look for that again. You can ignore those tests. Those are purposeful. Or are they? Yeah. Okay, so that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. Let's actually look for this with a comma. That'll filter out the things that I don't care about. So these are specifically, we want those there. This can be there. Oh shit. Let's do this and bring this back into our copy buffer, since we unbuffered ourselves before. Okay, who's next? And more, and more, and more. And more. And more. I feel like I should bring my stashed changes back up here. I do. I think I should do that at some point. In fact, I'm just going to end up throwing the stash changes away. I can feel it already. I mean, clearly I went through and did this one time before when theory pre-enumeration was on to find all the things that were broken, but then of course we re-broke a few things because when it's off and it's broken when it's on and you don't have it turned on, you'll never see when it's broken again. I don't know why I did that. That was dumb. Okay, so that means if I do this find again, it should just be those tests. Excellent. How did our run over here work? Worked well. We'll go ahead and run it again. And then we're going to come up here and do this, and this, and this. And then once this runs successfully, we'll run it again and track down the rest, and we can just go ahead and drop that stash. One more time. And we should find our broken test. Again, argument formatter test string values. It is interesting that these were put up here and you can't put them down here because even initializing an attribute with these illegal string values becomes illegal. It is something else, isn't it? It's really unfortunate. Okay. See who else is broken. Okay, so async acceptance tests. Async acceptance test, async value, task, test, turns results correctly. Whoops, we're in the wrong place. We want async acceptance tests. Can't, the V3ism, we can't serialized types anymore. I mean, we could try, but I don't think we can actually. All right. Execution error. Test case runner tests. Execution error. Test case runner tests. Of course, there's more typos. And test case runner tests. And we're going to find a theory with some typos. And test runner tests. Just find the type of in the data. And then extensibility point factory tests. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. That's what's going to be broken. Right, get XUnit test collection factory, user can choose blah, 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 blah. Yep, okay. Test method, test case, tests. Funny name. Interesting. I don't see any type of, oh, well, should turn off the regex, by the way. So there's our typos. And then XUnit test case tests. So whoever uses custom attribute test case data, that can't be enumerated, pre-enumerated. Okay, I think that's all of them. We have test output helper tests. That's the ones we found last week. And then I think that's all of it. So let's go ahead and run the tests again. Okay, now we're in runner common. Here we have more illegal nonsense. Delegating XML creation sync tests. Find type of. Oh, it's here. It's not types, it's strings. Illegal XML acceptance test, right? Yeah. Scrolling back, I don't see any others yelling about non-serializable stuff. That's good. There's a bunch. There's an XUnit v2. Yeah, there's a whole bunch in XUnit v2. Well, unfortunately, I can't change XUnit v2. Turn off serialization on an attribute level. It is interesting to me that just turning on pre-enumeration, these are some weird failures. It's like the tests depend on non-pre-enumeration in order to succeed. Which is probably why it was turned off in the first place. But what it also means is trying to run these tests inside of Visual Studio would yield improper failures. So, generic method tests. So here's the problem, is if I don't fix this, and then I go turn on pre-enumeration by default, without regard to filtering, then they're going to be broken. But also these things are broken if anybody, for some reason, were to go add the VS Test adapter into here and try and run these inside of Visual Studio, they would fail. All right, let's see how bad this is. Resolve generic method tests. I have to go reload this. Resolve generic method tests. There's the V2 version. And all of this pre-enumeration related to types. So resolve generic type. Resolve generic type. Well, you have member data here, so, well, actually, that means that should work. I don't know if this is going to be the case for all of them. XUnit theory case runner tests. Theory test case runner tests. This is theory test class with operator conversions. Am I in the right place? XUnit theory test case runner tests. XUnit theory test case runner tests. Yeah. Class with throwing enumerator. Is that what we said? Class with throwing enumerator is one of them. So you're not allowed to discover. And then class with throwing to string. You're not allowed to pre-discover. Theory discoverer tests. For V2, you are non-serializable enum class data. Who would have guessed that would be non-serializable? Enum data class. No. Non-serializable enum data class, the test. Oh, yeah. Okay. I can't fix this one because it's inline. So the only way to fix this with inline is to turn into member data. Data. No, not data attribute, just data. Public static I enumerable object array. Is a new theory data object 42 conformance level auto. Okay. And you can't be pre-enumerated. Okay. XML test execution visitor tests. XML tests execution visitor tests. XML adds error messages to XML. This can't be pre-enumerated. And XUnit 2, oh no, that's not it. XUnit 2 theory acceptance tests. XUnit 2 theory acceptance tests. Theory test class with operator conversions. Theory tests class with operator conversions. Argument declared explicit conversion, argument declared implicit conversion, both of those. Argument declared explicit conversion. Argument declared implicit conversion. Okay. Let's see. XUnit 2 theory acceptance tests. XUnit 2 theory acceptance tests. Theory test, generic with serializable data. Theory tests, generic with serializable data. And then generic with non-serializable data. Okay. And then we have, this is interesting. I don't know if this is actually true or not. Let's go save everybody. Can I do test v2? Cannot. Let's see. What if we do test fx console? That gets close. Good times. Okay, so we still have a bunch of failures, which is weird. All right, exception thrown in default test case order test cases falling back to random order, invalid, failed to compare two elements in an array, argument so there's at least one object in the array that cannot be serialized. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Problem is, I don't know what the test is here. Well, I mean, I have a bunch of these. Let's say at least one object in this array cannot be serialized. And this is, of course, all remoting. None of our code. Theory discoverer tests. Makes me wonder whether or not I can even solve this problem here. Maybe I can't. Maybe I shouldn't be trying to. Let's undo all the V2 tests. And let's change the way we're doing this. So you can come back. You can go away forever. We are going to grab you. And instead, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go to test FX console. Test flags parallel. So for V3, I would also like to add pre-enumerate theories. And for V3, we can pre-enumerate theories. V2 and V1 we will not. And actually, we can just bail out of this. Everything here needs mono. Mono is only supported for V3. At whatever bitness the user installs for mono. Alright, and now you can all get unwound. You can all get unwound. You can all get unwound. So there's V3. Default bitness. And then this is V3 32-bit. Forced 32-bit. Let's say that. So interesting that we run V2 and V1 with default bitness. We don't care. Oh no, we have the 32 there. Never mind. Okay, that's good. That's it for console. We have core. We could do core console as well. We could pre-enumerate theories in the core console. And then MS Build does not have a pre-enumerate theories option. I actually might. Probably does, actually. Pre-enumerate theories is there. So we could go turn on pre-enumerating theories in MS Build as well, which would all be in the NetFX proj. Interestingly, we don't run V3 with MS Build yet, which we know because we don't have that code done yet. We can't pass in the flags here. Parallel versus non-parallel. We're just trying to run these things. So I guess that's it. That should be all that matters. Let's go ahead and add everything, do a build, and start doing a review here. And let's see. Put a comment on just one of them. Really? Whatever. Well, this all looks fine. This just basically fixes it. Here's our actual code. That all gets to be inline data again, because we don't have to depend on member data to do the filtering. Okay. Bunch fixes. We got rid of this. We put it there. Put it there. We can space change that out. Put it there. Yeah. Okay, that looks good. And it all runs. We'll say add disable theory pre. I can't even remember what it's called. Theory attribute. Where are you, theory attribute? Disable discovery enumeration. Add theory attribute dot disable discovery enumeration and turn on pre-enumeration for V3 tests via console. All right, GPG, wake up. Very good. All right, so we can drop our stash. Should have nothing left in our stash, right? Yep, okay, good. Now here's the problem with dev. Because we did this, but did it differently, I feel like that's going to be broken now. So I think what I want to do is I want to snag these two SHAs. So let's go to dev. Let's reset hard to main. And then I want to cherry pick that one. And I want to cherry pick that one. Nope, that's the same number again. You didn't copy, did you? Or did I do the wrong one? Try again. Cherry pick that one. And then let's build here. So that should give us our two 1758s. Then we can go back and start doing traits. Sorry, traits. Since we pushed up to main, let's go take a look at... No. God, stop. What the fuck is wrong with you? I hit the end, I hit the end key, and it's like, oh, you want to add some more shit on? No. No, I don't. Hell's wrong with you? That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted either. Okay, what in the world? CI build. That's what I wanted. That was some weird ass cached stuff there, wasn't it? Okay. Never anticipating these things to fail, but you know, they were running on Mono and I was running on Windows. And I didn't run them on Linux, so always good to check. Alright, these all ran successfully. So I'm ready to push this up over top. Okay. Running tests in MS Build Runner, that's pretty much the end of it. Now we're making NuGet packages and pushing them up. 386, congratulations. Go get signed. And go get pushed. Very good. Okay. So the next thing would be to add traits. We're clearly not going to do it like this. This is some weird extension methody thing that was originally proposed. But we're gonna add traits here somehow. Someone gave me a rocket ship. How exciting. Okay. Back here. Let's get some traits. So what is this going to look like? If I go to now data, no, I theory data row, right? Traits, if I go look as traits on something, test case, perfect place, have some traits. Dictionary of string, the list of string. Excuse me. All right. It's traits associated with the test case with this theory data row. If there are none, or if there are none, you may either return a null or empty dictionary. This dictionary is treated as read-only. Actually, I wouldn't have to say that if I said, you know what, you only need to give me a read-only dictionary. And you don't have to give me one. Seems entirely reasonable, right? That's how we would get traits. Let's go look at some of our existing tests. Where would be a reasonable place to put this? We have theory acceptance tests, and we have theory discoverer tests. XUnit delayed enumerated theory test case runner tests. Probably not, actually. Let's start in the theory discoverer tests. We have skip on the attributes. And we have skip on the theory. So that's no good. Here we go. Class with skipped theory data rows. This is roughly where we want it to be, right? Can skip from theory data rows pre-enumerated. So let's write another one which says factoid can add traits from theory data row pre-enumerated. Steal this class with theory traits on theory data rows. This is going to be a traits. Ah, yes, theory data row doesn't yet implement this. You should be able to give me a real dictionary. Get, which is a new one, which is fine. I don't think that's gonna get our implementation correct. This should be able to do that, right? And then we'll steal the docs. Gets the trait values associated with this theory data row. If there are none, you may either return a null or an empty dictionary. This is the easiest way. This is the easiest way for us to implement this for usability. So we have a params object array for data. We have traits, but obviously we can't set it here, which means we can't do this like this. We need a get. This needs to be a return, but it's not exactly going to be right. So let's do traits. This params object for data. Params object array. So I guess it's, yeah, it's like every value is valid for that. So having another constructor with a different argument isn't helpful, is it? One of the things we do with theory data, which is the old type, is you and I read-only collection of whatevers, and you can do an add here. Because we have add, you could new up a theory data with something or other. I think the add thing only works if you technically are enumerable. So a theory data row, if we say your enumerable of an object array, no, your enumerable of objects. All right, let's get that. Yeah, that's fine. Data get enumerator is fine. Oh, wow, you really do have to cast this thing, huh? Wow. All right. You can definitely be an inherit doc. Yeah, this should be up here, not down there. And you're small enough you can be a one-liner. So if I go to add, I go and add an add, I should say. Public void add object. See data item. Our data was not, strictly speaking, just an array, but what if it was a list? All right, we'll get to you in a minute. Or we'll get to you now, that's fine. And if we said add, then what that would be data add data item. Adds a data item to the data returned via get data. Okay. You can no longer just do this. You can do toArray. Sad panda, right? One thing we could do is sort of opportunistically convert this thing back and forth. If you come to add, we turn this into a list, and then we add. This is going to be data as list. All right, data as list. So this cast or toList will basically say, if you're already a list, then we just give you back, otherwise we toList you. And then here, when we want the data as an array, we can opportunistically convert it into an array. Data as array is data dot cast or toArray. Data is a data as array. Return the data as array. So up here, if it shows up as an array, you never call add. We never call toList on it. We never call toArray on it. I like it. That'll work. So what we'd want is now that we have this add version, all right, we want to take this. I think we actually want to take this thing away. Enumerable, empty. I think I want to take this away. As a params. I think I want to take this away as a params. And that's going to break everybody who's using this, which there are 23 references, so let's see. Okay, so that, what we want is public static theory data row from array. We can do this, where we give you back a new theory data row with data equal to data. All right. Initializes, let's see, returns a new instance of theory data row from an existing array of data. The data place into the theory data row. You're telling me I can just use new. Of course I can. Might as well do a guard here. Guard makes sense. You're telling me I don't need to do that cast anymore. That is true. You are IEnumerable. And you're small enough now. Yeah. Andreas, you could add a setter, so perhaps it'd be a good API to create a data row. New theory data, trades equals new, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so that's a good point. Right? I could just put a setter here and we throw a new one in there by default. Yeah, that would be okay. Because, you know, the read-only version on the interface still is fine. Yeah, that's still fine. Okay, that's from an array. Yes, I realize I'm... This is kind of the other way that I want to be able to do this. I think. Theory data row from an item. From a single item. So that's interesting. How do I get skip on there? I guess I just do it like this, right? Because that doesn't work, right? Does this work? That doesn't work. Does that work? That doesn't work. This doesn't work at all. Oh. Yeah, this doesn't work at all, does it? Alright, this is a bad idea. Or at least the bad idea is taking away the... Bad idea is taking away the constructor. Oh, I should just undo my way through this. Yeah. Just undo my way out of this entirely. Let's just grab this. Okay. Undo that. With a setter. Okay. Undo your dumbness. No, that's too much. This is definitely where I wanted to add my traits. Alright. Add traits. Okay. So, test with some skipped area data rows. Let's see, so this is going to be test with traits. So if I can do it like this, then I can still, whoops, that was too much. And I can still do this. And then we're going to do traits equals new. Traits is new. Here we're going to put number 42. Number 42. Oh, it's a string, list of string, right, of course. Number, new, 2112. Now what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Understood. Okay. So what does that test look like? It looks a lot like this test. Except it's against this class and not that class. It's against this method and not that method. Go get the fact attribute. Sure. Do a discoverer. And there's the display name. And then we don't want to skip reason. We want to say assert collection test case traits. Let's do this. Trait is assert single on the traits. Trait value is assert single on trait value. So let's also do an assert equal number, trait key. 40, it's 2112. Trait value. We'll come down here to 42. Okay, core tests. Trait with blah blah blah. Yeah, that would help if I had the right names for things. Let's fail for the right reason. Oh, yeah, that's right. So there's still an assembly trait that's hanging out there. So what we want for this single is a version of single where we are looking for predicate. T key equals number, which means we don't have to do that anymore. We can just do that. Are we finally failing for the correct reason? Collection was expected to contain a single element, but matched none. There we go. So we need to pick up the theory data from there. So let's go to... Let's close everything. Let's open Theory Discoverer. Traits. Do we even talk about traits in here anywhere? We don't even talk about traits in here anywhere. XUnit pre-enumerated theory test case takes traits, but we're not passing them. So we should probably... So there's the theory attribute. We can give it to you, but you don't use it. Create test cases for data row. Create test cases for skip. Reason should be passed down in the test case. That's an old comment. Create test cases for theory. So this is for the entire thing. So this is when pre-enumeration doesn't work or has been turned off. Create test cases for skipped data row. That is not alphabetical, by the way. I'm sure I just added it in the wrong place. Let's actually go ahead and... Yeah, I want to put it outside, but you know what? It's just going to stay inside this commit. Whatever. Create test cases for skipped theory. And we should call this skipped theory. Yes, I realize that's a breaking change, but I'm okay with that. So there's a skipped theory. Oops. That was not what I wanted. I moved the wrong thing. So we have skipped single row data, skip theory. Default returns a single instance of executing test case, which inherently discovers the skip reason via the fact attribute. Okay. Creates test cases for a single row skip data by default returns a single instance of executing skipped data row test case with the data row inside of it. You have to override test method test case skip reason, otherwise the default behavior will look at theory attribute and the test case will not be skipped. Interesting that I have that in a remark instead of a summary. I feel like remarks are things that don't show up well in IntelliSense. Alright, so where do we use this? Oh, it's there. Never mind. Let's see. For skip data row, for skip theory. Yeah, I'm okay with that. And then theory discoverer tests. So we need traits in the test case for data row. This is where the traits need to be. So this is called by here. Create test cases for data row, which gives you the theory attributes and the resolve the data. Should we pull traits? Well, for starters, both of those probably deserve to have the traits, right? So even if you're a skipped data row, you still have traits. So both of those need the traits. So traits are going to be theory attributes. Oh. We're at this level, are we? Yeah, this is a problem, isn't it? It's not on the attribute, though, is it? No, it's on the data row. I'm dumb. Never mind. All right, so data row, traits. Actually, that's fine, right? So what that means is you guys need data row traits. So do you. So here we're going to put I read only dictionary of string, list of string, traits. Alright, and here we're going to put traits as well. We need param names, traits associated with the test case. Except that's not all of the traits. That's just the traits on the data row itself. And I'm wondering if these things, these test cases, like if you have null traits coming in, which is what I'm going to assume is going to be the, also you don't even have a way to set traits here, do you? Because you're calling the version, oh no, you do. It's here. Calling version sets traits. And we only go and get traits if the traits come in as null. So the dependency is that the test case itself retrieves all the traits. But this does this logic actually belong here? Is the question. So this protected constructor gets called presumably for deserialization, amongst other things, right? Well, here's the public constructor. It calls the protected constructor. The deserialization actually does not. It just calls base. And one presumes that traits that come in here through deserialization will just be deserialized and won't be looked up again. Okay. Get trait attributes data. Get cache trait attributes on the assembly, concatenate them with the ones from the test method, and concatenate them with the ones from the class, and then cast them to read-only collection. Those are all the trait attributes. So in order to actually accurately test this, what I really should do is do assert collection on the traits. So we'll do test case traits order by the key. And then we'll say, given a key, right, we're going to look for at least two of these here, where we're going to say assembly kvp key, kvp key, and then grab stuff like this. Alright, and grab stuff like that. And you're going to be number collections. I don't know why I said collections and not collection. And then this is kvp value, kvp value. And then we should do this exact same thing down there, except for 42. Okay. So at the moment, we have is this. create test cases for data row, create test cases for skipped data row, also has traits. XUnit skipped data row test case just gets traits. That is a dictionary. Maybe I shouldn't do this as read-only. If it's dictionary all the way through everything, then I guess it's dictionary all the way through everything. Theory row data. Theory data row. Theory data row. Line feeds, please. Yeah, you don't need to be there anymore. You can be an inherit doc now. You're just going to be a dictionary. Null or empty dictionary. Okay, so there's that for traits, and then here we have also traits, right? Traits. You're also a dictionary. Something down here is unhappy. That's because those are possible null reference argument for parameter traits, data row traits. Oh yeah, that's a good point. These should be nullable. You don't have to give me traits. Okay. Now what? So our test should still fail because we haven't actually used that stuff yet. Create test cases for data row. You need dictionary string list string traits. You also need to pass this in as traits. Cultured XUnit test case does not take traits. And it needs to. I'll put you there, I guess. So after test method, traits. Okay. And the base, somewhere in here is traits. That is right after skip reason, which is right after test method arguments. So that's traits. Create test case. If traits can be null, maybe it's in the wrong place. Yeah, maybe it's in the wrong place. Let's change the signature. And now let's change the signature. Will you let me change the signature now? Yeah. We're going to move you down there. Okay, good. What else? Nothing else. Okay, we still have one failing test because we expected 2 things in our traits and we still only have 1. Okay, good. So I'm going to assume that this got all the way through to the test case. All right. If I were to stop here, it's unbelievable how slow the debugger is. Is that a 10x slowdown? A 50x slowdown? It's just brutal. It's at least a 10x slowdown. Maybe it's IntelliTrace that's making us so slow. All right, so our traits right now just include number. They don't include assembly because we didn't do the merge here. So here we would say everywhere where we add traits, we add traits. So traits as a property comes from test method, test case, right? Which is if we give you traits, they show up in the dictionary. Otherwise, the dictionary is empty. So we always have a dictionary. So what that means, we should just take the if check out of here and say, even if you showed up with traits, we're still going to look for them. Helps that I misspelled assembly, right? I'm curious to see if the debug is faster now that IntelliTrace is off. No, that's just, I mean, that's just brutal. Yeah, it's just brutal. All right, so it would help to spell assembly correctly, they say. I don't remember what the name is for the assembly value. It's just trait. Okay, assembly trait. And then we have our number trait. We expected XUnit skipped data row test case, but we got an XUnit pre-enumerated theory test case. Where's this? Theory discover can add traits from theory data row. Oh, yeah. This should be pre-enumerated as well. This is not skipped. Right. Okay. That's a holdover for copy pasta. This is ugly as hell. But I don't have a better option. Yeah, I don't have a better option. traits is a dictionary, we say, well, the docs say you can return null or whatever, but actually that's not really true. But once you have one of these, you can just add a trait. But I kind of also want to have an add trait helper. Just because this is kind of a pain in the butt. KVP is going to be traits.get or add. Right, get or add for the name. A new list. KVP value add the value. So for this would be a new, this is a new key value pair, right? No. No, that's the list. So this is the list. Right. Adds a single trait name value pair to the theory data row. The name of the trait, the value of the trait, that gives at least a Andreas, I just looked over and I saw you were typing exactly what I was doing, and now you just retracted. I saw you retract them. Yeah, that's a little bit easier. It's still not like from the use case here where you just kind of want a new one up. Like it's just not that simple. You know what I mean? I wonder if we could do something like, there's a couple more options, right? We could do something like new theory data row 42 with traits and use lambdas. Lambdas, what am I talking about? Tuples. Right? The downside of that is we would obviously new up multiple theory data row objects, because I would new one up and then with traits. Maybe with traits is what I have instead of add traits. What if I just like did with trait instead of add trait? And what it returns is this wow, that looks much better. Even though I'm not a big fan of the dotting forever into the world strategy. That's not too bad, right? Yeah. Assembly level trait, So we should probably also put in a trait on the theory itself. All right. Just to make sure that we are doing the right thing. Theory level trait. Give me all of these. You are theory. And you are test with traits. Just to help make sure that we are merging everything. You do a class level trait. Row level trait, assembly level trait. Okay. Just for completeness, because we really never had any trait anything in here. I know that the behavior actually comes from the test case, but just want to make sure that we don't lose it. Okay, let's do an add and a build. And let's see what evil we have concocted here. Culture theory trait attributes. Culture theory attributes now has traits. Culture Dexian test case now has traits. We have this new test. Theory data row now has traits. Theory discover plumbs traits through to the factory functions. And then of course I rearranged that so the diff looks a little weird. Okay. So we have traits and we have with trait. And we stop ignoring traits. Okay, good. And the build looks good. Number 1758. Allow adding traits via iTheory data row. Good. All right, what's left? So in my list, I put skipping. Traits was already here. Providing overrides of test case metadata like a description. Nobody else has added anything else. So should we be able to override the description? So this is kind of an interesting one. Like, we have on the fact attribute and the theory attribute the ability to override the description. Should row data be able to override the description? Should row data be able to override the argument, the formatted argument list? So if we give you the option to override the description, should we not even print the argument list? Three sort of interestingly related questions. And just to be clear, I don't know which direction I'm leaning. Should a row of theory data be able to override the description of the test? I don't see why not. Should a theory be able to override the argument formatting? Should overriding the description remove the argument formatting? So if you override the description, you're also taking responsibility for formatting the arguments. Where is the argument formatting happening? I'm pretty sure it's happening in XUnit test case. Or maybe, all right, with test method arguments. Test method arguments. So you get stashed into test method arguments. And just look for uses of argument formatting. Don't care about asserts. I don't care about common, apparently. Definitely don't care about tests. Parameter name to display value. This might actually be the thing that we use. Get display name with arguments. Formulates the extended portion of the display name for a test method. When for no test arguments, this will just return the base name. For test with arguments, attempts to format the arguments and append the argument list to the test name. So that's where this is done. And this is called from XUnit test case, as well as test method test case. So display name in the case of XUnit test case is the base display name. So we either get display name from the fact attribute or we get the base display name. And base display name is probably just the class and method name, or method name depending on your default method display. Okay. So test method test case must have a display name. And it's just a get with a protected set. So in its constructor, let's see who sets display name, right? So in the constructor, we get init results display name. Right. We get display name, init, exception, and method generic types. Otherwise, we do get display name with arguments, which is where we just were. So changing a display name does not change arguments. So if we were to put display name in there, we could override the display name of the method, but not the way the arguments are formatted. If we wanted to be able to override the way the arguments are formatted, including excluding arguments from being formatted at all, we'd need some way to pass that down into XUnit test case to say, my custom display name does not want arguments. So right now, we read that from the fact attributes. Otherwise, we use the base display name. So we don't take display name in here as a possibility. We just always assume that it gets set. So if we were to take display name in here, you just always pass base display name. As you go look for the attribute. Okay, well, let's do display name. Let's see, I don't want to just call it display name because that would imply it's the display name of the theory data row. So I want to say test rar. Okay, fingers in the right place, Mr. Touch Typist. Test case display name. Maybe test display name. Any chance you could increase the font for us old timers? Yes. Better? Let's see. Gets the display name for the test, replacing the default behavior, which would be to use the display name from fact attributes, or falling back to the class and method name. Wow, did I really? Okay. All right, gets the display name for the test. Falling back. Okay. So that would be test display name. So we'll go ahead and put you right there. Alphabetically. Let's go get theory data row. And this is an easy set get. Alright, public string test display name. We'll inherit docu. And we'll go to theory discover tests again. We'll come down towards the bottom because that's where we were. We'll say facts public void. Can add traits from theory data rows. Let's say can set display name from theory data row pre-enumerated. Let's grab our test class. class with display name, theory data row. So we'll do one of these with a display name and one without. I am a special test. Alright. We don't need traits. Test with display name. Okay, so you're going to be, whoops, can't copy paste you into the copy pasted test code if you haven't copy pasted the test code yet. I don't think I need all of that. In fact, I'm sure I don't need all of that. But we will take these test cases and I think do just that. And just that. So I want you to run those, which means that's that, and that's that, and this is the method names, that's the method name, this is the method name, this is the method name, except this whole thing, I don't know why I did that. I am a special test. We ordered by the display name, which would put this one first. Okay. There we go. It's a nice happy fail. Let's go to our theory discover. And let's see. Just like we added traits to both of these, we're going to need to add display names to both of these. And I feel like one of the things we didn't actually do last time, and we should, is this. Right, we should have skipped somebody. And we'll make another one. I'm skipped with a test display name. I'm a skipped test. Okay. So we need another test case. That one would show up here. I'm a skipped test. 2600. You are going to be an X unit skipped data row tests. Okay. Can't add traits. So how come that one didn't get skipped? This one should have gotten skipped. Oh, which one got skipped? 2112? Hey, dummy. Right type's in the right place. Okay. Alright, back to the Discover. So, we need, in both of these cases, create test case for data row, create test case for skip data row. These all need to have display name. String display name. Alright. Param is the optional display name for the test. Okay, so these need to take display name as an option, right? Probably don't at the moment. Okay, same for this. Display name is display name. Okay, so the base for this is XUnit test case. Wow, that thing is getting ginormous. Ginormous. Do we have display name in here yet? Does not look like it. You need to go down into your base. You need to get past here. You need a comment. There's that. Display name is equal to, let's see, we pass this in here. And we set this like this. That one's okay. Start closing some of these. This one looks to be okay. These are expecting us to pass display names, and we aren't in places, right? XUnit skipped row test case also needs a display name. Okay. It's fine. This is good. So that means we have to come down here and fix the display names. Which I put after theory attribute, right? So display name. Display name. These I can actually pull just from the data row again, right? Yeah. No argument given for display name. Well, you should probably also have a display name, but what that also means is we probably need a way to test this. Delay enumerated theory test. Nope. We would not pass a display name there. Definitely not. Does everybody build? Hardly anybody builds. Of course. You too. What happened here? Create a test case. So cultured fact attribute, we don't need to worry about display names. So cultured XUnit test case. Display name should probably be null, which I guess means we get thrown at the back, just like traits did. Okay. How exciting. Sort of feel like putting names on some of these. Oh, these are tests, so not too worried about it, I guess. Everybody builds. These run. Do not. Expected skipped and instead got pre-enumerated. All right, let's go make sure our test is okay. So we are on line. Whoops, I guess I killed it. We're on line 599. I'm a skipped test. I'm a special test. Theory discoverer, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Theory discoverer tests only, please. Debug, see what's going on here. So I think this is correct, but let's go take a look. So we have test cases. We don't have any display names. You are oh, doesn't tell me your type. It's fine. Sure. So no display names. Did I do it wrong? There's test display name. There's test display name. We got the skip. All right, test display name got used. Whoops, that's not what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. It got used there. This is kind of what I want, but also kind of not what I want. So I'm going to disable and then Shift F5 and F5, and we'll try again. This is where I am. You can be enabled now. Okay, your data row is I'm a special test. No. So display name is I'm a special test. Pre-enumerated theory constructor. Display name is I'm a special test. Display name is I'm a special test. Oh, I know why. I only used it in one place, right? Yeah, I didn't use it here. If you give me a display name, I use it. Otherwise, I go look for it on the fact. Otherwise, I use the base display name. Which should be, we should have that same logic here. Except we don't have either one there. But we should have this, except we don't have this. Alright, so then this is what this is. Okay. There we go. Better. And then there's everybody. Okay. Run the build, and now a quick peek at what we've done. Okay, so theory data row gets test display name. Theory data row, just a simple get setter. Culture aware needs to bring in data row, or data display name, sorry. Culture introduction unit test needs to pass the display name through. We actually needed a skip here. Should actually probably do this as an amended commit from the last one. I think I will actually. To wait for these to be done now. Come on. You're almost done. There you go. Alright, let's pick this file. Because I want that, and I want that, and I don't want that. We'll amend that commit. There we go. So now we have our new test. Display name into the theory discoverer. Factory methods, makes sense, yes. There's display name there, and display name there. Display name into our test method test case constructor. Delay enumerated theory test case gets it with a null. Pre-enumerated theory test case gets it as a parameter. Skipped data row test case gets it as a parameter. Actually, test case constructor gets it as a parameter. And the factory methods. Oh, there's actually two constructors. I take that back. Two constructors. Okay, looks good. $1758 allows setting test display name via I theory data row. Okay, I think that all of this is now done. I don't think there's anything else in here that anybody talked about. The OP was around traits. I added skip and display name. That's it. And I'm going to close this issue. We're going to mark you as done. And throw you into... There's our 1698. No, that's not it. 1758, that one right there. Look, you're closed. All right, let's go to main. FF only from dev. Push to main. There's our official push. And that should get a new version built. Alright, well that's 2 hours and 40 minutes of the stream, and you know, we accomplished I think everything I had set out to accomplish. So the theory data API is better. I added the 3 things I could think of, but we definitely now have mechanisms to add more if anybody comes along sometime between now and the time 3.0 ships for real to say, here's something else I'd like to have in the theory data row. Well, there you go. It'll be there. Cool. All right. Thanks for hanging out. I guess that's it for today. And I'll see you all probably next week. Yes, I think next week I should be able to code next week. So, yeah, see you all next time.